The electrification of the Porsche brand is really gathering pace. We've already seen an update to the Cayenne, which is focused more than ever on hybrid power, an update to the Panamera, which the same, is more focused than ever on hybrid power, and of course, earlier this year we've seen the updated Taycan. Now, however, it's the big one. It's the electrification of Porsche's most popular model, the Macan. We're here today in France to drive two different versions, the entry-level 4 and the more powerful turbo. And this in front of me is the latter. You can tell that because it's got this monochrome badge, which is a relatively new thing on turbo models. The colour Porsche calls Turbonite. Other than that, you can tell immediately this is a Porsche. Even though it's a pretty big step change for the brand, it clearly is from the same school of design. And in fact, it's clearly from the Macan school of design. Up front, what draws the eye straight away are these distinctive lights. And these aren't the headlights actually, this is daytime running lights up here with the usual 4 points. Down below is the headlight itself. It's a smooth, attractive looking car, I think. And one of the biggest things actually about it is this sloping roofline. If anything, in comparison to the Cayenne Coupe, this you could have thought would be called the Macan Coupe, but that's not the case. This is just the electric Macan. If you come around to the rear, this is actually my favourite view. It carries on Porsche's current design language in terms of this full width light bar and big wide Porsche mark just here, which all this is illuminated. But it just has a bit more about it, a bit of attitude, a bit of stance, and that doesn't matter that there is no exhaust pipes whatsoever. I think it looks good. People are going to like the style of it. There's lots of different colours, lots of different wheel types and sizes. But anyway, let's have a look at the interior. If you're familiar with any of the recently updated Porsches, the interior of the Macan will also look familiar. That's no bad thing at all. It's very high quality, it's stylish, and yet it's quite simple. It's understated, if you like. Up here we've got digital instruments, which actually don't have a cowl, which gives them a bit of a unique look. There's lots of customization there. They're very, very clear and easy to read. In the middle, a very easy to use touchscreen, lots of functionality. What we're very happy to see is that down here we've got physical controls to set up the air conditioning, heating and all that. We've been a strong advocate of keeping such controls. I'm really, really happy to see Porsche doing that. Despite that, there is actually quite a bit of storage in the middle here. You've got 2 large cup holders, a bit more storage in front of that, an underarm bin here with more storage, and I noticed the door bins are particularly big, so that kind of reminds you that this is a more practical Porsche as befits the SUV shape. Porsche is particularly proud of, in here, a cooled smartphone wireless charger, and that's standard across the lineup. And it's behind this nicely damped lid as well. Now clearly the Macan isn't as big as the Cayenne, so you can't expect it to be a huge family carrying SUV. And up front it feels fine. It feels big enough for any 2 large adults. Lots of adjustment in the seat, lots of adjustment in the steering wheel. At the back, it's not quite so spacious, but it's okay, especially in the outer 2 positions. There's a bit of a transmission tunnel, unfortunately, so don't expect to be getting 3 adults or 3 big teenagers in there every day of the week. Fine for, you know, everyday duties and normal duties, but don't expect this to be a big family car. Anyway, back to the Porsche-like attributes of this car, and this steering wheel is worth pointing out. I'll probably mention it again when I'm driving it, but it is a joy to hold. Porsche realises that you do not want a big thick rim that some manufacturers do, and it's a nice size as well, and this particular car has an Alcantara rim, which is lovely to hold, of course. There's lots of physical controls on here, and you have the drive mode selection rotary here, which is familiar fare from all Porsche cars now. And now it's time to explore what those different driving modes do on the road. I'm at the wheel of the likely bestseller and actually the bizarrely named entry-level model, the electric Macan 4. I say bizarre because it is a ridiculously high specification for an entry-level car. It's got 2 motors, obviously. Is Macan 4 means it's 4-wheel drive, so it's an electric motor front and rear, and they produce up to 387 horsepower in normal driving. There is a launch control function with an overboost function as well, and that brings peak power up to 408 horsepower, which in any other terms is a lot. So if you do use that launch control function, apparently this car will do 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 5.2 seconds, which is, it's fast enough for anybody. Bear in mind, this is supposedly a practical SUV at the end of the day. Anybody can make a fast electric car. We've seen that now already. all manufacturers. It's very easy to put a big powerful electric motor in and you get silly acceleration times. This is a Porsche, so it has to be a bit more than about straight line acceleration. So we've been up in the mountains here outside Nice to put it to the test, and it doesn't take long once you hit a bit of an interesting road to realise that the Porsche reputation is intact. Even when you're driving around in normal mode, there's a nice weighting to the steering. The steering wheel itself, of course, perfectly thin rims. It's not too thick. It's a nice size. It's just pleasant to drive. The brake pedal is nicely modulated. It's very easy to drive smoothly in traffic, and then when you're driving a bit quicker, it gives you lots of confidence in it. The brakes themselves are quite powerful. Obviously, there's a bit of brake energy regeneration going on there, but what I like about this is that it's not pronounced. It doesn't feel like it dominates the experience at all. And that's always been Porsche's way, actually. It isn't a big fan of brake energy regeneration in normal driving. As standard, the Macan 4 has steel springs and PASM, which is Porsche Active Suspension Management, which means adaptive dampers. This particular model has also been given the optional air suspension, so that changes things. That means it can alter the ride height, and obviously it adapts as well, so it can give you different spring rates for different driving modes. Even in the normal mode, there's quite decent response from the motors. Actually, between them, they produce up to 650 Newton meters of torque, so that's probably a more important figure than the peak power figure, and that gives it a lovely, effortless performance. If you're just ambling along, you just tickle the throttle pedal, the accelerator pedal, and it just accelerates as much as you want it to or need it to. It does ramp up if you twist the button down here, the controller down here, into sport mode, and the suspension firms up as well. It also, in this particular model, brings in the sound. I don't know if it could be heard through the microphone, but there's a different sound depending on whether you're in Sport or Sport Plus modes, and actually it isn't all in the normal mode. Now, so Sport mode affirms the suspension, as I said, makes things a bit more urgent. And within a few kilometers of that, I happened to come upon a wide open empty hairpin, and might have put my foot down a little bit on the exit, and remarkably it uses more of the rear motor's output in that situation, and there was even a little bit of oversteer, so that was a bit of a surprise. It was completely controllable and well telegraphed. I could feel that it was going to happen, and it was, I didn't actually really need to counter steer. The car wasn't going to let itself career off the road or anything, but it added to the feeling of agility. It added to the driving experience. It made it feel like a Porsche, not just another electric SUV, if you like. Switching into Sport Plus mode, it ramps all of that up a little bit. It does, however, make the car a little bit too firm for most roads. Even here in France, where the roads are quite decent, there's a lot of bobbling about in that mode. Because this car's got the air suspension, it drops the ride height as well, so it lowers the centre of gravity, and of course improves aerodynamics, I suppose, when it's lower too. Personally, I think the sport mode is the perfect setting for driving, even if you are pushing on a bit, even if you are on interesting roads and having a bit of fun. There's an off-road mode as well, so if you twist that controller around a little bit more, there's an off-road, and that obviously raises up the suspension. It gives you a bit more ride height. It's got four-wheel drive. In terms of other basics, despite the fact that it's got a curvy rear end and the roof is more sloped than the outgoing Macan, there's decent visibility in all directions. Nice big mirrors, and it just feels like an easy-to-drive car in a normal situation. And let's face it, most people will be driving this as a normal car. It doesn't take long at the wheel to summarise that Porsche's not reinvented the Macan in terms of how it drives. Because it's such a successful car, people clearly like how it drives, and Porsche didn't want to change that despite the fact that it's moving to electric power. It feels like a sporty Porsche on the road. It just happens to be one that's a bit practical and a bit more affordable than many. I'm now in the Macan Turbo electric one, obviously, despite the name, and it also has two electric motors just like the Macan 4, but the rear motor is unique to Porsche, and it's a high performance motor. Peak power in normal driving, I should say, it has 584 horsepower. This is a serious high performance SUV. However, in overboost, launch control and all that, it peaks over 600 horsepower, which means an 0 to 100 kilometers an hour time less than 4 seconds. As you can tell when you're just ambling about, as with the Macan 4, it's perfectly drivable, very smooth, very quiet, really quite a pleasant car to drive at normal speeds. There's a few extra tricks up its sleeve, like PTV, which is Porsche torque vectoring on the rear axle, so that makes it feel even more agile when you're pushing on. And I guess in theory you can oversteer more, but how many people buy an SUV and expect it to do that? The key thing is, of course, that it feels very much like a Porsche, and of course it feels very much like the Macan, that it replaces the petrol one, which was so beloved by driving enthusiasts. This particular car actually is a really nice Alcantara, or whatever Porsche calls it, suede-like steering wheel rim, which is just lovely to hold. And actually, as this is the turbo model, it also gets the monochrome crest, Porsche crest, which I think really looks tasty. I bet there are plenty of turbo buyers out there who will opt for the traditional colour crest, of course. Now, in terms of battery, both the Macan 4 and the Turbo share the same 95 kilowatt hour battery, and that's the usable energy capacity. It means a range of up to 613 kilometers in the Macan 4, which is pretty substantial. And actually today's driving average 17 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, so it looks like that figure might be somewhat achievable by some people sometimes, and certainly in warmer weather like we're experiencing today. The Turbo doesn't quite manage the same range, but you know, it's not far off, to be honest. And though the architecture of the Macan is new, it isn't exact same as the Taycan before it, it does carry over an 800 volt battery system, electrical system, and that enables very fast charging. So up to 270 kilowatts on DC charging if you can find a suitable charger for us. An optional feature on both models is rear axle steering. And as we've seen on other similar systems, it steers the rear wheels opposite to the fronts at low speeds, make it a bit more agile, makes it easier for parking. It also makes it more sporty feeling and more dynamic feeling, I suppose, in tighter corners. And then when you're at higher speeds and motorway speeds and everything, it actually turns the rear wheels at the same angle to the fronts, and that enhances stability. But of course, most people, unfortunately, spend a lot of time at lower speeds like we're doing right this very second, in busy traffic, etc. For that, the new electric Macan, it's just perfect. It's really smooth and quiet and comfortable. It's a stylish looking car. People will absolutely love that. And it just does a good job as a daily driver. What I love is that it mixes that everyday usability with a proper Porsche feel when you have an interesting road ahead of you and you up the driving mode, so you Sport Plus. As in the Macan 4, this particular vehicle has air suspension, and so it can alter its ride height according to different driving modes, different settings. So there's actually an off-road setting on this car as well. That's our very first look at the new electric Macan. It's difficult to believe that this is actually now the most affordable Porsche you can buy, certainly on the Irish market. It comes in at about €92,000, which significantly undercuts the rear-wheel drive Porsche Taycan. And yet it's such a polished product. The entry-level model is pretty much all the Porsche most average drivers will want. It does everything. It's comfortable on daily driving, it's smooth, it's refined, and yet turn up the wick, find an interesting road, and it lives up to the badge, lives up to the Porsche badge, lives up to the Macan badge. And that is actually a key thing. There's no doubt the Macan is going to continue to be Porsche's most popular model, not just in Ireland, but all over the world. You can read more detailed reviews of both the Macan 4 and the Macan Turbo on our website. It's CompleteCar.ie, and it's a great resource for researching your next new car.